In this video, we're going to see how we can collect collectibles in our game, such as coins. We're going to see how we can have our coins rotating nicely in the air. We're going to play a sound when we collect our coin. We're going to update our score, and we're going to destroy our collectible after we collect it. So let's jump up. All right, you can see that I've collected my coins. I play a sound. The game object no longer exists. Every coin is worth 100 points. And I get a nice sound effect. All right, let's see how we can recreate this effect. So here I have a nice blank scene inside of Unity and that we're going to use to set up the same demo I just displayed. All right, so first things first, why don't we go ahead and just import our standard assets such as our characters package. So if you click on that, you can see I've already had my standard character controllers imported. So I'm just going to click on first person character prefabs and just bring in my first person controller. I'm going to delete the previous camera and I'm going to reset the transforms of my first person controller. I'm going to update its height and bring it back about 10 units in my game scene. So now when I press play, I have first person controls ready to go. All right, so why don't we go ahead and make our coin collectible? All right, so I'm going to make an empty or a 3D game object, and I'm going to just for this purpose use a sphere. I'm going to reset its positions, and I'm going to make it flat. Hopefully you guys already have an asset for your coin. I'm going to remove its sphere collider, like so. I'm going to call it coin, and I'm going to add a box collider so it's more in line with the flat shape of our coin there. All right, great. And I'm going to make its box collider a trigger. I'm going to go and move into my scripts folder, right click an empty space and create a C# script. I'm going to call this collectible. Let Unity process it. And I'm going to drag and drop it onto my coin right here. Now I did that twice. Now I have a collectible script on my coin. So why don't we open it up and let's see what we can do to make it rotate in space like we did. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and organize. I'm not going to need void start, but I am going to start with two public variables, public int value. This is going to be the value of our coin when we collect it. That'll update our score. I'm going to make a public float called rotate speed, so we control the rotational speed of our collectible. All right, instead of our update, why don't we go ahead and figure out our rotation for our coin. So we're going to say game object. We're going to point at our game object our script is attached to. We're going to go to transform, and we're going to update our capital R rotate. And we're going to update it by saying vector3 dot up times time dot delta time times rotate speed. All right, this is going to allow us to rotate our coin. I'll hit Control S to save that. And we should see some values in rotate speed right here. I'm going to set my value to 100 points and my rotate speed to 75. If I hit play, I now have my coin rotating nicely in my scene. All right. So we got the rotation fixed on our coin. So I'm going to reselect my collectible. And now I'm going to create a void on trigger enter. All right. And inside this, I want to do a few things. I want to call my collect function, and I want to play sound whenever I enter its box collider. All right, so I'll hit Control S to save. Why don't we go ahead and get the audio playing on our coin whenever we collect it? So first we have to attach a sound source, audio source component. So I'll select my coin, go to Add Component, go to Audio, Audio Source. Now I have a whole audio source component, and in this package I have a nice coin collect wave file. And we can preview it by selecting it and pressing the play in the bottom right hand corner. So I'm going to go back to my coin and I'm going to drag and drop my sound file into audio clip right there. This is what's going to allow us to play our audio clip. So if we go back into our code, whenever we play our sound, we have to do a few things. First, we have to create a local variable so we can get at our audio source clip. So we'll say audio source, and then we're just going to call our variable source equals get component. And then we're going to point to our audio source component, parentheses. So now we can just say source.play, parentheses. Oh, misspelled source. There we go. And I can delete that comment. Now when we collab with my coin, it should play our sound effect. All right, you'll notice that it played on enter. And as I pass in and through my coin here, it plays our audio clip. So why did it play as soon as I started the game? That's because I have a play on await Boolean checked. If I uncheck that, now we don't get that initial sound effect. But we do get it every time we enter the box collider of my coin. There we go. All right, so now we have audio playing. Now we have to do a collect function that updates our score, updates our UI, and destroys our object. But we're not going to do that in our collectible script. We're going to make a game manager real quickly. So I'm going to click in the blank space of my hierarchy, and I'm going to create an empty game object, and I'm going to call this game manager. I'm going to put it right at the top of my scene here. And then I'm going to go to my scripts folder in my project panel, create a C# script, and call this game manager. It's going to use the singleton logic method, or the singleton method, in which we can reference any of the functions and variables inside of our game manager. And we do that by saying public static game manager instance. And then we're going to set it equal to nothing to start out with. So we're calling a public variable that's static, meaning it's globally accessible through any script in our game. We're going to call it type game manager, which points back at the script game manager we're currently making. We're going to call the variable name instance. That's the name we'll use to get at our game manager scripts and our game manager functions and our collectible script right here. All right. The next we want to do is make a void awake function. And we're going to use the singleton logic to say if instance equals null, then we're going to say instance equals this. Basically, if instance does not exist, then we're going to say, okay, instance is going to equal this script, this game object. Else if instance does not equal null, meaning there's already an instance in place, and we're trying to make a second instance of our object, we're going to destroy this game object because we don't want two game managers in our scene. All right, great. So now we have to do a few things here. We have to make a void or a public void function called collect. And inside this public void function, we want to have our logic do a few things here. We want it to destroy our collectible. We want it to update our score value. And then we want to update our score UI. So those three things we need to accomplish inside of this function. All right. So let's go back to our collectible. And now that we have our collect function already made right here, why don't we go ahead and call it in our collectible script whenever we enter its collider. So we're going to say game manager dot instance dot collect, and then we need to pass a few things in here. We need to pass the value of our coin we're collecting, and we need to actually pass the game object itself so we can destroy it in our game manager collect function right here. So we're passing two different variables in here. So now we need to make room for those. So let's say int passed value, and then we'll make a game object variable called passed object. So now we'll be able to access the value of the certain coin we're collecting and we'll be able to access the actual coin itself so we can delete it. All right. So there's a few wrinkles here when trying to get our sound to play and destroy our game object. So let's just try the most straightforward method right now for destroying our game object. Let's just say destroy past object and call it a day. All right. Yeah, I think that's right. Unity showing errors for some reason. Who knows why? Well, we got some syntax errors, so let's look at it. So we got a syntax error. I needed to put a semicolon when I was calling my collect function right there. All right. And we got another one. Let's figure that one out too. There we go. If instance does not equal null, and if instance does equal null. All right. Syntax errors out of the way. Gotta love those. All right. So let's see what we're doing now. Okay. So whenever we enter our coins collider box, we got our audio playing, which we've already confirmed. And now we're going to call our collect function in our game manager that will destroy our object so we can't collect the coin again. So let's see what happens with that. Object reference not set to an instance of the object. So what's going on here? Well, we have a logic error going on with our destroy object, destroy past object function we're trying to call here, because we're destroying our coin, but yet we're trying to play the audio source. But whenever we destroy our coin, there is nothing to play. So we're having a problem here. We got to be able to play the sound on our coin before we destroy our game object. So why don't we say destroy, and destroy has a nice little bit. We can say destroy after 1 second. And let's try that. So we're still not having, what's going on here? We need to take our game manager script and attach it to our game manager object. The problem was we were trying to run over our coin, and we were calling a script in our game manager, but yet we didn't have any of the functions or scripts attached to our game manager in our scene. So that's why we create our game manager game object and then attach our script on it. So our script has a presence within our game, within our level. So let's press play and let's run over our coin now. All right, that looked like it worked out pretty good, right? We collected our coin, it played a sound, and then it went away. But yet, it's still not quite where we need it to be, because whenever we hit our coin, shouldn't it disappear automatically instead of waiting after 1 second? So there's still kind of a logic error here. We need to fine tune this a little bit more. So instead of destroying our coin right as soon as we touch it, what if we deactivated the mesh renderer? The coin still would exist, the coin object would exist, but it wouldn't be drawn anymore. So theoretically, the coin would disappear, it would still have time to play the sound file, and then it would be destroyed altogether. So that seems like a pretty good way to do that. So why don't we say past object, and then we're going to get component, and we're going to get at the renderer. And then we're going to set that enabled to false. So this right here takes our past game object, which is the coin we're collecting. We're getting the mesh renderer component, and we're setting its enabled to false, effectively checking this mesh renderer checkbox on and off. So let's see what happens now. Great. Our coin disappears as soon as we collect it. We get our sound effect, and then the game object is destroyed shortly after the sound quits playing. So we have our destroy set up. We have our sound set up pretty good. All we have left to do now is to update our score and our score UI. So now we have to actually set up our UI canvas. So I'm going to click in the empty space of my hierarchy, go to UI, make a canvas. I'm going to call this canvas UI canvas. And in my inspector, I'm going to keep it as screen space overlay. And I'm going to take UI scale mode and have it scale with my screen size. So no matter what size my screen is in my game view, all of my components will scale size with it. And then I'm going to right click on UI canvas and create UI, make a text. I'm going to call this score text. All right. So now we have to position our score text just so. So I'm going to go ahead and start by increasing the width to 300 and the height by 150. All right. I'm going to set in paragraph, I'm going to set it to a line on the left side and a line in the center. Now I can increase the font size to something like 30. Actually, you know what? I think I might just have it stay in the top left. So however you want to align your UI is up to you. Right now it's kind of just up to you. And I'm going to position it. And we can have finer control if we select our UI transform box right here. Or we can just use our regular translate tool. And then why don't we set our anchor, which is these little arrows right here. Why don't we just position it in the top right corner of our screen? That way, whenever we move our screen size, it'll always kind of stay to that top left corner. I might have said top right a second ago. I meant to say top left. So no matter what our screen size is doing, our new text, our score text, is going to follow it in that top left corner. And then you can even take your pivot and set it to follow in the top left corner of your box there. All right, really simple UI stuff right there. And then for the time being, let's make a placeholder text right here and say the score will be 9,999. It's just giving us a preview of the screen real estate that our score is going to take place. What we need to do now is to update our score text every time we collect a coin. All right, great. So let's go back to our game manager, and we have to make some brand new variables real quickly. We're going to say public game object, and then we're going to call a score text object and hit Control S. So if I go back to my game manager now, I now have a score text game object that I can plug my score text into that I just made. So our score text was score 9,999. I'm just going to plug that into my game manager. Now I have access to my score text, and I can get at my text field right here and update it accordingly. Next, we're going to make some private variables. We're going to make a int score that will keep our running score. And then we're going to make a text score text. Now, text is in red because we haven't added the UI library. So let's go to the third line of our code and say using Unity Engine.UI, semicolon. Now we can actually call some UI functions in our Unity Engine.UI library right there. All right, great. So we have a placeholder to keep our score. We have a variable that we can access our text component on our score text object that we created right here in our hierarchy. So let's do some more things in Awake real quick. We have to say that we have to initialize our score text variable that we just declared right here. So let's do that in Awake. Let's say score text equals score text object, which is our public game object that we shoved our score text into. So we're getting at our score text game object right now. And then we're going to say, get the component on that called text. So now we have a score text local variable that we can start messing around with. And in our next line, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to say score text.text equals, well, what is score text.text? Well, if we select my score text object, our text is this box right here that we were using to type in whatever we wanted. So now we have to update this box by saying score text.text, and we're going to set that equal to score, and then I'm going to make a colon and add a space, plus what? Well, score Well, score is an integer. How do I make it display as a string? Well, luckily there's a function that does that for us called toString, and then we'll end it with a parentheses right there. All right, so that should take our text box in our score text field and set its value to our score. If I can spell string right, maybe it'll work even better. All right, so that means I can basically put anything right here, like even current score. And even though we have score 999 written right here as our placeholder text, as soon as I hit play, it turns into current score because we're updating our text field over here in our inspector. We're updating our text field with current score. So you can do whatever you want right there. And it's displaying 0 because we're doing plus score to string. We're turning our score integer into a string that we can display in our text field. So now we have our UI functioning. All we have to do is update our score every time we collect a coin. So why don't we update our just regular score value? So we're going to say score equals score plus passed value, the value of the coin that we're passing into our collect function. And then we're going to say score text equals score with a space plus our newly updated score to string. Hit Control S. And now everything should be pretty good looking. All right. So I'll hit play. And I have my coin just sitting there. I'll walk over it. I'll have the sound. I'll have the score update. And my game object will be destroyed. So we can now take our coin and make it a prefab. I'm going to put my UI up there so I can have my coins just sitting right here. And I'm going to make a few coins in my scene so we can test out multiple coins. And I'm going to position them up in the air. I'm going to spread them out a little bit. So now, when I start the game, my score 9,999 becomes score 0. I collect a coin. Oh, what happened there? Well, when I jumped through my first coin, I landed and collected it twice. Well, why is that? So let's turn our maximize on play off. And let's look in our scene view as I jump through my first coin. Let's look right here. And I'm going to select my coin actually. I jump up and you can see that my collider box was active even though my mesh had turned off. So maybe we need to turn off our collider box as soon as we collect our coin so we don't have the possibility of collecting our coin twice. So why don't we see how we can do that, and we'll be able to call it a day. So we need to go back into our game manager, and it's actually going to be an easy line of code. In fact, we can even copy our renderer.enabled equals false code. And all we're going to do, instead of say renderer, we're going to say collider and hit Control S. So what we're doing is, as soon as we enter our coin, we're turning off its mesh renderer and we're turning off its actual collider. So we can't run and collide with our coin twice. So I'm going to select my coin and we're going to test this out again. All right, you can see my coin rotating in its box there. So now when I jump through it, its collision box now disappears. And now we have a fully functioning collection system that gives us accurate scores without the chance of any kind of double score or our sound not playing. All right, so that does it for this video. Hope you guys learned a lot. Thanks for watching.